doing tonight? That was horrible. How's everybody doing tonight? Oh, there we go. You are alive. That's wonderful. Glad you guys are all here. If I've never met you, my name is Bryce. I would love to meet you. Come introduce yourself sometime. That was a fun game, wig snatching. That was pretty funny. Liam was really good at it. Who knew? Who knew he had that hidden talent of snatching people's wigs? If you're wearing a wig, watch out for Liam. But how's everybody doing? Has it been a good week? Pretty good week so far? It's a 3-day weekend, right? No school next Monday, so that's exciting. No school ever for him, apparently, so that's interesting, you know. That's pretty cool. Anybody going to do anything awesome over the 3-day weekend? What are you going to do? Sleepover? What are you doing? Sleeping. What are you doing? You're sleeping too? What are you doing? Volleyball tournament. Nice. What are you doing? Same volleyball team? Nice. Nice. Hopefully you win. Anybody else do anything cool over the long weekend? What are you doing, bro? Playing with Rockets? Rocket League? Oh, cool, cool, cool. What are you doing? Softball? Isn't it? And eating. Okay. Together or separately? Same time? Okay, cool. Anybody do anything cool over here over the long weekend? No? You have a volleyball tournament? Hey, maybe you're playing against them over there. They've got a volleyball tournament too. Packing for camp. It's a little early, but you know, that's great. Never too early to be ready, I suppose. Camp is coming up, guys. We only have like 5 spots left maybe, okay? So if you're like on the fence or thinking about signing up, you should do it as soon as possible because the spots are filling up. And once there's no more room in the bus, then I just have to shove you under the bus or something, and that's not going to be the most comfortable ride up to camp. So sign up quickly if you still want to go to camp. And if you are worried about like money or something like that, come talk to me, and we can help you get there because we've got some friends who have donated some money to help people go to camp if they can't afford it. So come talk to me, and we'll get you there. Also, my friend Maggie told me that there was a typo on that thing about the cookies and crew necks. It's not on the 29th, it's on the 28th. So, not that you probably care, but it's on the 28th, not the 29th. So, thanks, Maggie. She's smart. She's a genius. But tonight, guys, we are jumping back into a series we kicked off last week called Built to Last, okay? Talking about the new year, 2026, just kicked off. If you hadn't heard, we are a solid 14 days into the new year, which is kind of crazy. It's already halfway through the first month of the year. It's moving quick. And last week, if you were here, we kicked it off talking about, does anybody remember what we talked about? Nobody? Our hearts. Yeah, we talked about a new heart, and that was pretty great. We talked about how you receive a new heart in Jesus and what that looks like and how that can help you this year and how when you follow Jesus, you receive a new heart instead of your stony, stubborn heart that you kind of have. And we talked about how it's important at the start of the year to look at where's my heart at and what's that doing, because your heart kind of determines lots of things, right? We talked about how what you do is determined by where your heart is and what your heart wants and desires, right? And those kind of things determine a lot of our habits, right? And I was thinking about the habits I had when I was a middle schooler, and I had some weird habits, and I was talking to some other people around. I was like, what kind of habits did they have? And I think one of the habits I had is when I was in middle school, I pretty much exclusively dressed like Adam Sandler. And if you don't know what that means, basically I wore like basketball shorts that were a little bit too long and like a hoodie every day. And that was pretty much all I would wear. And like for like 3 years straight, pretty much just same thing, and some like high socks that were probably like too high, and it was weird, right? That was a bad habit I had. I had a lot of bad habits as a middle schooler. Sometimes I would chew my nails. Do any of you guys do that? Like bite your nails? Yeah, that's a really bad habit. But my mom was really nice, and she would yell at me every time I did it. So then I stopped doing it eventually, which was great. And then I had some other weird habits where like one of the worst habits I think I had as a middle schooler, it started in middle school and it's still going to this day, is I started to like snooze in middle school, right? You know, when your alarm goes off and you just turn it off and you go back to bed, 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes. And then eventually you just keep doing that until like, at least when I was in middle school, my mom would come in the room and say, hey, we have to leave for school in 5 minutes. And I'd be like, oh, I got to lock in. And then you just like run out the door and you're rushed and you don't get breakfast and it's the worst. And I would do that like every single day chronically, right? It was bad. And I still kind of snooze a lot. My wife makes fun of me for it because the alarm goes off and you just need like 5 to 10 more minutes. Does anybody like to snooze or sleep through their alarm entirely? Yeah. Or do you even set alarms? You can't sleep through an alarm? Why? Just hit it. Oh, your Alexa plays music. Just I used to have this alarm clock when I was in middle school. It was Winnie the Pooh, okay? It was Winnie the Pooh, and it plugged into the wall. And what happened was I had that for like most of 6th grade. And then eventually, like it had this button you could hit on top of it to snooze. And I would try and do that. And that wouldn't always work. So then one day, I literally grabbed it like by the top, and it threw it across the room. It like ripped out of the wall, and it shattered on the wall. And then I didn't have that alarm clock anymore. See, if I had an Uptown Funk alarm, I probably would want to get up. That would be inspiring. But lots of bad habits, right? And I'm sure all you guys have habits. Some of them are probably good. Some of them are bad. Hopefully, you guys all have the habit of like brushing your teeth, right? That's a good one to have. If you don't brush your teeth, you should look into that. It's probably a pretty good thing to do. But basically, what a habit is, if you're wondering, if you've been talking about this and you're like, I don't really know what that means. This is what I think a habit is. It'll be on the screen. This is my definition of a habit. Ready? A habit is something you do so often, it feels weird not to, right? So like the mornings you leave your house, and let's say you didn't brush your teeth, hopefully you leave and you're like, oh, I feel kind of gross, and I feel like I might have some bad breath. And you're like, this doesn't feel right? Because it's something you hopefully do so often that when you miss it, it feels weird, right? Anything, whatever it is, a habit, something you do so often that when you miss it, it feels weird. And these can be good habits. These can be bad habits, right? Maybe you have a good habit of like, maybe you eat like a vegetable every day or something. I know I don't do that. But I would have a habit of like, when I was in middle school, I'd have like at least 4 Oreos a day minimum. Like that was just a daily thing. And if I missed my daily Oreos, I was sad. So that was a habit I had. But the point is, I'm sure you guys have some habits. I'm sure that you have some that you probably are like, those aren't the best. And some that you're like, these are good habits. Maybe you're in sports, right? In sports, they talk about building habits when you're in practice. You go through like the same things in practice every day, whether it's like stretches or maybe it's like hitting practice or whatever you play. Or maybe you play an instrument, you have guitar practice, and they try and build these habits of how you play and things like that. The point is, these habits are important, right? But what we talked about last week is why we do the habits, right? Our heart has to drive us towards doing these different things. Our heart is always going to be leading us, right? Our heart is going to be leading us towards good habits or towards bad habits. And so once you kind of have this new heart in Jesus, what you're going to notice is that this heart, right, we talked about Jesus doesn't just change everything about us right away. He starts with our heart, right? It starts with the heart. And then what we notice is some of our habits are going to start to shift a little bit. Suddenly, we're maybe going to have a habit that we think, oh, this isn't such a great habit, and I know that I shouldn't do whatever this is, right? Maybe you have like an addiction that you struggle with, or maybe you struggle with, like being angry towards other people or being rude or hateful, and you start to feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore, and you kind of want to break those habits, and you get that feeling, and you're like, I don't really know how to do that. If you ever have that, please talk to someone in the room because they've probably been through the same thing. A lot of your leaders in the room have been through the same thing, and they can help you break those habits, right? And today we're not talking about breaking bad habits, but we're talking about something the other side, kind of starting good habits, right? Because when your heart is chasing after Jesus and when you have this new heart, you're going to want to start to develop these different things to pursue Jesus. Maybe things like reading your Bible, praying, worshiping, these different things, and you're going to start to be like, oh, I actually get joy from these things now because I have this new heart. But the thing is, those things that we know are good for us, they still take a little effort to become a habit, right? Make a habit, it takes a couple of months of doing something before it's truly a habit, right? You probably had to brush your teeth every night with your mom telling you when you were like 4 years old, and you probably wouldn't remember to do it. And then you did it like 400 times, and you're like, oh, I don't need to be reminded to do this. I can just do it, right? So we're talking about a new habit. And basically, the habit we're going to talk about tonight, I think if you would have this new heart in Christ like we talked about last week, and then you add this habit, I think it would drastically change your life and your entire year and the people around you's lives too. I think it would be one of the biggest things you could do to change your life for the rest of forever, right? And that is the habit of prayer. We're talking about prayer tonight, okay? And we're going to look at this story in the Bible of one of these people who I think is best known for prayer. And I think that he lived a life and he was remembered for being a praying man and remembered for lots of cool things. But I think one of them is prayer. We're talking about the story of this guy named Daniel. Everybody say Daniel. Daniel, okay? Oh, you can take that down for now, actually. Thank you. So Daniel is this guy in the Bible, okay? And he's got a whole book about him, actually. It's called the Book of Daniel. Okay, pretty cool. It's in the Old Testament. You can check it out sometime. But basically, here's the overview of Daniel. Daniel is this guy, and he is a Jewish man. Okay, so he's from Israel. Israel, this country, they get conquered by another country, right? So this country comes in, takes over. That country is called Babylon. Everybody say Babylon. Babylon, okay, kind of a weird country. What Babylon does is they're kind of weird. They conquer a country, and then they take a bunch of the young people to their country. So they probably took a bunch of people, maybe your age or so, 13 years old or so. They took a bunch of these young kids, and they said, all right, we're going to take them out of their home. We're going to take them over here to Babylon, and we're going to put them in our home. We're going to teach them our ways. We're going to put them through our school, and they just kind of kidnap them and take them over here. And the goal is to integrate them into their society. So that happens to Daniel when he's young. He goes to this other country and he's like, what the heck? And he's learning these things. But basically what we see time and time again in Daniel's story is he is following God, and he is following God with his whole heart, and he is doing whatever it takes to follow God, and he is standing up to this country, and he is actually doing a really good job of doing it, right? No matter what it is, we see a couple different stories of him standing up to the country and saying, I'm going to follow my God no matter what. And it's a really cool thing. The other thing we see about Daniel is as he's doing that, he's actually really successful in that country too, right? Even though he's kind of denying their laws sometimes and doing whatever it takes to follow his God, they still are promoting him within the country, right? He was very influential and important in this country, and he had a lot of power, he had a lot of influence. And so it gets to this point where he has a lot of influence, and a lot of the other people, think about the politicians, the powerful people of the time in this country of Babylon, they don't like that. They don't like that Daniel has all this influence, and they're like, yo, we got to take this guy out. We got to figure out a way to get rid of him. We need to kill him, basically, is what they want to do. They want to get him out of there because they don't like how he has all this influence and power and how he's following this God that they don't believe in. So what they do is they go to the king, and they are like, hey, Mr. King dude, you should make a rule that everyone can only worship you. And the king is probably like, well, I'm pretty cool, so yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do that. And so the king makes this rule that everyone can only worship him. And so they make this rule, and Daniel, he's like, okay, well, whatever. I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing. I'm going to keep worshiping my God. And so we're going to check out this verse, Daniel 6, chapter 6, verse 10. Okay, we're going to read this together. You guys read the yellow words. So this is what happens. They make this decree, and it says, but when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, the law that they can't worship anyone but the king, says, he went home and knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with its windows open toward Jerusalem. He 3 times a day, just as he had done, giving thanks to his God. You can leave this up for a minute. So basically what we see here, Daniel, he finds out the news that he's not supposed to do this anymore, and he can only worship the king. And he says, I'm just going to go about my business, do my thing. He goes up into his room. He opens the window, he gets down and he prays just like he does 3 times a day, right? He does this all the time, it sounds like. He says, just as he had always done. He didn't just go and pray just to spite these people because they said he couldn't. He went and did it because this is what he did. This is what he did all the time, right? He always went and prayed. He always did this. This was a habit for him. It was something that he was constantly doing and consistent in doing. It was normal for him. It wasn't like he just went to pray because of this decree. He went to pray because that's what he did every day. And it doesn't say what Daniel prayed for there, but we know that a lot of times he prayed for revival. He prayed for God to restore his people back to Jerusalem. He prayed for his friends. He prayed for his enemies, the people around him that didn't like him. He prayed for lots of these things, right? And so what I didn't say before is those people who wanted him dead, basically, the law that they passed said if anyone's caught and is not worshiping their king and worshiping someone else, they have to be thrown into a lion's den, which a lion's den is just like a big cave where lions hang out, basically. And so they caught Daniel doing this because he did it with the windows open, so people saw it. They take Daniel, they throw him into a lion's den, they roll a giant rock in front of it so he can't get out, and they leave him in there for a night to hang out with Simba and Mufasa and all of them. And typically what would happen if you put somebody in a lion's den, they would be eaten, right? That makes sense. It's a horrible way to die. I can't imagine what that's like. But they throw him in there, and then they come back the next day, and they're like, all right, let's clean up the body or whatever, go get the bones. And they open the thing up, and Daniel's just sitting there hanging out with Simba and Mufasa, having a good time, singing Hakuna Matata, doing whatever. And he's alive. And they're like, all right, what the heck's going on here? This is crazy. His God must be real. And the really cool thing that I want you guys to notice is it wasn't like Daniel, he didn't go and pray to avoid the lions, right? He wasn't saying like, God, please protect me from these lions. That's not what he was doing when he went to pray. He just was praying because that's what he always did. It was a habit. He was going to keep praying to God because that is how he stayed in touch with God. That's how he stayed connected. That was his life. It wasn't anything crazy or different. He saw this new decree passed and he didn't panic, because when prayer is normal, panic is not, right? When prayer is normal, panic does not have to be normal, right? He prayed privately. He went up to his house. He prayed consistently. He said he prayed 3 times a day, every day. Every single day. He prayed consistently and he prayed simply, right? It doesn't say it was anything crazy. It said he just knelt down and prayed. It doesn't even tell us that it was some long prayer. It just says he just sat down and prayed. Maybe it was 2 minutes that he just talked to God, right? It was an everyday thing for him. And I think we can learn a lot from Daniel. And I think what I really like here and what I really see is that this idea that when I pray, then I stay. Okay, it'll be on the screen. When I pray, then I stay. Right, I stay close to God. That was how Daniel stayed close to God. He was in this place that did not worship his God, that did not like his God, that did not teach about his God. There was no one around that was like, where he could go to a church like this and be with other people who followed the same God. He couldn't do that. So he had to stay connected through prayer, right? When I pray, then I stay close to God. And I want you guys to think about this, right? When you're thinking about it, and you're thinking about prayer, right? It's kind of confusing because it's like, what exactly is prayer? Like, it's one thing to say, like, Daniel went and prayed, but what is prayer, right? Prayer is the act of talking to God. It's the act of telling God about things. It's the act of communicating with God, right? And it can take on many forms. It can look like, praising God, saying thank you for all these things and give thanks to him. You can look like going to God and asking him for things, right? Saying, God, I want you to come into my life. I want you to, like we talked about last week, to change my heart, to make it new. It can be looking like talking about God saying, hey, I've got some family members who are sick. I've got some things going on in my life and I need help, right? It can be taking our requests to God. It can be thanking him for the beauty of the world. You can just be going outside and be like, God, these mountains are awesome and beautiful and you are an awesome God, right? It can look like so many different things. It can look like a written prayer, right? So there are people who would write down their prayers. There are people who turn their prayers into songs and sing them. There are people who would just, like Daniel, he would just sit there 3 times a day, every day, and just spend time praying, right? It can be a chance for you to share your feelings and share the things you're going through with God, right? To share these things, to request that he would help you with these things, to help that he would help come into your anxiety or your depression, and that he would know those things. It could be even yelling at God could be prayer, right? Maybe you're angry about something. Maybe there's something hard going on in your life and you don't understand why. And you can go to God, and part of your prayer can be telling him your frustrations with him, telling him that you're upset, telling him that you're angry at the situation, right? He is going to receive those prayers no matter what they are, right? And sometimes he doesn't always answer the way we think he will, right? Sometimes he answers yes. Maybe you ask him to heal one of your family members. Maybe he does that. He says yes. Sometimes he might say no, right? Maybe he says no to something. Maybe he says not yet. Maybe he says, you know what? Maybe keep praying. Maybe it's just not right now. Maybe it's not no forever. It's just no for right now. Sometimes he says, I actually have something better in mind for you, right? Maybe you're praying for something and you're like shooting the bar here, and he's like, no, I'm actually going to do something way up here, like even cooler in your life, right? God can answer in lots of different ways. But what I love about the story of Daniel is it wasn't anything crazy. It was just consistent. He was just a consistent prayer. It was a habit he had. He prayed every day. And I wonder what that could do in your life, right? I wonder if you were to incorporate prayer into your life, right? Maybe it doesn't have to be 3 times a day on a specific time like Daniel, but maybe it could be, right? Because what we see is that Daniel had a habit and a system to help him pray. He had a habit and a system, right? He had his little window he would go to. He would get down on his knees. He probably had a little rug there, and he would pray 3 times a day. He probably had specific times he did it. He had a habit and a system to help him pray. So what could you do to make prayer a part of your life, right? Maybe there's something you could do. Maybe it could be before you go to bed every night when you're brushing your teeth, you just pray. Maybe it could be right when you get up in the morning after you hit snooze for the 3rd time or something, and you actually get up, you just pray for 2 minutes, right? What could you do to make prayer a part of your life? Because when it starts to become a consistent thing, a normal part, a habit in your life, it starts to make a big difference, right? Because it doesn't have to be anything crazy. He just prayed consistently and simply. He just communicated with God all the time, and it can have a big change, right? And prayer can have a big, big difference in your life. So when we start to pray, it's going to have an impact on your life, right? It's going to instantly have an impact on your life. But the really cool thing about prayer is it can also have an impact on the lives of those people around you, right? You can be praying for your friends. You can be praying for your family. You can be praying for these people, and you will actually start to see things change, right? There was this group in town this week. They were like these kind of like missionaries, kind of like they work for like a different, like a ministry, right? They're like a group of people, and they go around to a bunch of schools, right? And their whole goal, their whole thing, they're called Claim Your Campus. If you were at Cimarron, they came there for a day and hung out with you guys. But I got to hang out with them a little bit more this week, and they were telling me just stories. Their whole goal, they've been traveling around all like school year basically to different schools, and they just help get little prayer groups started in different schools basically. That's their whole goal. But they were telling me these stories, and this girl Aubrey is kind of like their like little boss, I guess. I don't know. She was in charge, and she was telling me about how when she was in 6th grade, her and one friend, they were at the school. They lived in Ohio, and they just started a little prayer group at their school, and it was pretty cool. I was like, oh, well, like, what was that like? I was just asking her about it. She's like, yeah, me and this one friend, we would just meet in the gym every day before school, and we would just pray for the school for 5 minutes. And she said that was in 6th grade, and they kept doing this. And by the time they got to high school, they had this huge group of like 30 people that would meet together every single day and just pray for their school together. And they just did this, and they got to see God do so many cool things. And there's a whole group of these people, and they were telling me about these other things. They were in this school that was in kind of like more of like an inner city, like a rougher part of town. And they said that this school is like just known for violence, right? There are like fights at the school every single day. And they said that they like helped start a prayer group at the school with just 3 little kids, 3 middle school kids. And these kids started praying every day that like there would be no more violence in their school, that the fighting would stop, that the bullying would end. And they said that those people, these, you know, they helped start this little group, and then they checked in with them like the next semester. And those kids said, yeah, we haven't had a fight in 2 months. The school that was having a fight every single day in the lunchroom, literally like a really rough school. And all of a sudden, these 3 kids started praying for it, and it actually changed their school. It was so cool to just get to hear story after story of how God is answering prayer requests, right? He's answering people. When people pray consistently, God shows up, right? Just like we see with Daniel. Daniel got thrown into the lion's den, and God protected him not because of one prayer, he said, but because of a lifetime of consistent communication, of habit of prayer. So I want to challenge you guys. Think about it this year. How could a habit of prayer change your life, right? What could it look like if you started to pray consistently? What if you started to pray, right? Just like Daniel, find a time or a place, something to remind you, to help you make it a habit. But we're going to get into this last song of worship here in a second. And as we're kind of in this last song of worship, I want you guys to just take a minute and just sometime during the song, just say a prayer to God. Just say something simple, right? It doesn't have to be complicated. It can just be you bringing him your heart, right? Just bringing him what's going on in your life, the things that you might have, the requests you might have, the things you're going through. Tell him about them and just say, God, I want to make prayer a part of my life. Help me to do that. And I bet you he will help provide opportunities for you to start praying more. Because if you make it a habit this year in your life, I promise you, it will have such a great impact. It'll impact you not only this year, but for the rest of your life. You can start having this habit of just praying and talking to God. So with that, let's pray together, and then let's get into this last song of worship. Dear Lord, we are so, so grateful to have a God that wants to talk to us, that wants to hear from us, that wants to hear what's on our heart, that wants to hear the things we're going through, that is there to listen, that is there to be there with us, and that responds as well. God, we are so, so thankful that we have a powerful, mighty God that can answer our prayer requests, and that sometimes knows when there's something even better out there for us, and when to not answer those the way we think, and to surprise us with something different. God, we ask that you would just help us to be a group that would pray, that would seek you, and that would pray. Just pray often and pray simply and pray consistently like Daniel, that we would be people who seek you in prayer, Lord. Teach us how to follow you, Lord. We pray this in your name.
My God will never
I love that song. The battle belongs to the Lord, right? We have to go to him in prayer if we're going to trust that the battle belongs to him. So a couple of things real quick, guys. You are loved and prayed for, and you are accepted here at Garage just as you are. Guys, we hope to see you next Wednesday. And remember, if you wanted to sign up for camp, there's only a few days left, so sign up. And if you need any questions, come talk to me about it. Have a great night. We love you guys, and we will see you next week. See you there.